Hey guys, it's your Uncle Crappy. I'm adding on this brief intro to the intro to tell you that it's happened once again. One of the games that we chose to talk about has been called off because of a COVID outbreak on campus. Um, Carla and I talked about this a little bit last night, and we feel like the football discussion is still valid even without a game. So we want to leave it. We're going to leave it in the show. Also, I will never pronounce Talia Tagovailoa's name better than I did in the show, so I didn't want to lose that effort. Enjoy the show, guys, even with just a little less football, and we'll see you next week. Howdy, boys and girls. Welcome back. It is week 11 of the 2020 college football season, such as it is week 11 of the Carla and Crappy Show. I am Crappy. It's November. We were just talking about this. I'm wearing a t-shirt. I put on a hoodie to do the show, and it's too warm. I can't do it right now. And Carla in Nashville, it's even warmer.
Yeah, it's like 80 degrees here. Like, it's crazy.
I'm not complaining, but it's that football weather would be cool.
Yeah, I know. Right. Well, I posted a picture on Instagram. On Sunday, I stopped. I had to pick up some things. I'm loving this whole, like, being able to shop online and go pick things up in stores. So, like, place the order and then just go pick up. So I did a bunch of that on Sunday. So I had a bunch of stuff to pick up. And I was like, ooh, the holiday drinks came back at Starbucks. And if you know me from Pittsburgh, like, I am a huge peppermint mocha fan. Like, that's my thing. Peppermint mochas are back. They're back. They came back last weekend. And so I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to go get my first peppermint mocha this season. So I went and I picked up my first peppermint mocha this season. I was wearing a mask. I'm holding my peppermint mocha. It's 84 degrees. It was too hot to actually have it, but it was the whole thing. It's like, no, I got to have my first one.
It is the whole thing. I mean, my beer distributor has had like this wall of cases of Mad Elf
right?
For 3 weeks. Before Halloween, and I'm like, I'm going to buy a case because I buy a case every year,
right?
And I will drink some now, and I will hold some back, and I do the whole aging thing, and we do verticals, and it's a lot of fun. I try out of principle not to do like a week of Thanksgiving. Okay, that's fine. We'll good then.
Right.
But maybe in a couple days when it gets cool again here, when we have highs in the 50s. Like it's supposed to be, then I'll be able to worry about this a little bit less.
Yeah.
But it's coming. It's coming. It
I'm
just
still
doesn't feel
on
like
summer.
it right now.
Yeah, I'm still on summer wine. Like I switch my white wines depending on the season. Like it's Pinot Grigio in the summer, and then when it gets cooler, I like the Chardonnays. I'm still drinking Pinot Grigio. It's It's like November 10th when we're recording this. Middle November.
We can call this mid-November. That's fine.
Uh-huh.
In a normal football year, we would be almost done with the regular season.
Right.
Just a couple more weeks. But we're playing football into December, and maybe
later.
And maybe then we pick up with bowl games, and who knows what form Bullapalooza is going to take this year. We haven't even talked about that.
We have no idea.
We have no idea. And maybe the fact that this is like the equivalent of mid-season instead of late season football is why this week is so weird.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get to that. There are no top 25 on top 25 matches. I am certain that has happened in the history of the show before, although I don't recall off the top of my head when. But it's just, but it's not even that. There are games that are interesting, but for odd reasons. It's not necessarily matchups. It's not necessarily, well, some of it is, divisional standings and stuff. And again, we'll talk about this stuff, but it's just a weird week. Right?
It is. And it's not a cupcake week. That's what makes it weird for me. Like normally, like if you don't have the big top 25 matchups, you end up with like
Alabama's playing Presbyterian and
right. Yeah. And so we have fun with that. But this week there's really not even anything to like, have fun with in that regard. I mean, it's just kind of a mint week, and we're recording this on Tuesday, and half of the SEC slate has essentially been canceled at this point.
Yes, already.
Which is, the Bulletpalooza thing is interesting because, I mean, the SEC, the rate we're going, the SEC might be playing all the way until January, just regular season games as opposed to getting the bowl games. So yeah, it's just a weird week. It's the epitome. I keep saying every week that there's something that's the epitome of 2020, and maybe this week's football schedule is the epitome of 2020. We have no idea what the heck is going on.
I will tell you. I will tell you later in the show. I will tell everybody later in the show what is the Ohio State fans' epitome of 2020 football.
Okay. I will look forward to that
because it's like, oh, really? Okay. Before we look ahead, we will look back. I know you didn't watch a whole lot of football last weekend, but anything stand out for you?
Well, the first thing that stands out is kudos to both of us. We did pretty darn well with our picks on Action.
Yeah, we did.
Well, 4-2. That's not bad. Mm-hmm. The two close games that we knew were going to be the close games were the two that we both got wrong. And so, hey, for our first week back for a conference that we really didn't know much about, I'm going to take that as a win in the win column for us.
I would point out that my Bobcats have now moved up to 1-1 after beating Akron 24-10 tonight.
Okay.
That game just went fine.
And Kent State's up big. That's the game we have on downstairs. Kent State's up big over Bowling Green.
I would expect that.
And it's pouring, which is fun. I'm not sure what's better, MAC football on a Tuesday night or MAC football in the rain on a Tuesday night. Like that's.
I'm waiting for MAC football snow Tuesday. That's sort of the ultimate.
We're a few weeks away from that, but that's going to happen. Yeah. So we did well on Maction for week 1, and I'm still loving the fact that the MAC is just refusing to play on Saturdays and saying nope, we're playing on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Have fun. So I still love that. That's good. My other note that I had was way wrong. I was way wrong. You were correct. In the cocktail party. And I was kind of disappointed that ended up not being much of a game. I was hoping that was, we were afraid that was going to happen. I thought it was going to go the other direction. I thought that Georgia was going to figure out a way to pull that one out. But I was looking at the second quarter, just because I'm a crazy college football statistics person, I guess. I don't know. I dug in the drive charts on that game just because I was fascinated by it. I was a little distracted by some news that was going on Saturday, so I wasn't watching a whole lot of college football. But yeah, the second quarter is where that game really turned. Georgia had 4 offensive possessions in that quarter. All of them ended in punts.
Okay.
And the only points that they scored was off of a pick 6.
Mm-hmm.
So Georgia's defense tried real hard to keep them in that game, but
on brand.
Yeah, and Georgia's defense kept them in the game, which is what Georgia's defense does, or tried, and they just couldn't overcome. I mean, 4 punts in a quarter is not gonna work.
Nope.
In a battle with another, top 25 opponent like that. And then they just kind of imploded in the second half, throwing 3, with Stetson Bennett throwing 3 picks. 3 interceptions in the second half alone is just not going to do it.
Nope.
So now you got Florida sitting in the driver's seat, essentially in the East, to probably go get, shellacked. Yeah, shellacked, whatever. Yeah. Pick your euphemism here as to what's going to happen when they have to go play Alabama. So, here we are again, just kind of back where we thought we were going to be in the SEC.
It's just I read a thing. I'm going to column on ESPN at some point today about the fact that you can't get along with a caretaker, with a game manager quarterback in 2020. If you want to be an elite program, that just doesn't work. And I think we've seen that with Georgia so far at this point. I mean, we've talked about Stetson Bennett. I know it's been a topic for us for more than once this season.
Yeah.
And as I've said before, his story's awesome. But Georgia has to be. You can't just say, okay, we're going to run the ball. If you're a one-dimensional offense. Even with that defense, slowing down the opposing team, it's not going to work. But then you look, at Ian Book. I have dismissed him before as a game manager. He was more than that on Saturday. Although, that is still Notre Dame's playbook. Solid defense, solid running game, and they've got, a O-line and D-line with the experience to do that. But Ian Book had a great game for him on Saturday night against Clemson. So I don't know that my question. Well, I'll get to my question in a second. I don't know. Just having watched Clemson, I'm not sure if Trevor Lawrence had been playing, that would have been enough. It might have been. That was a great effort by Notre Dame all the way around. But as you and I were speaking before, you put them in whatever stadium they're going to be playing in for the ACC title game, and healthy Trevor Lawrence. It's interesting. I suspect that would be an ugly game. But here's what I'm wondering. You and I talked about at the outset. Does the SEC get two teams in the playoff? Alabama default, of course, and then whoever wins the East. And we were thinking we were both overestimating the quality of football in the SEC East. Could that happen with ACC? If Notre Dame with a tight loss, similar to Clemson's loss last weekend at Notre Dame, could the ACC place two teams in the top in the playoff? And I think they could.
Yeah, I mean, I really hate that's a really great question. I hate to say this because of how much we have railed against Notre Dame in the past about getting in, like, for the love of God, would somebody please beat Notre Dame already? We went through an entire season of that. I would rather see both Clemson and Notre Dame in the playoff than anybody from the Big 12.
Yeah.
And when you look at the way that the Big Ten, and we're going to spend some time in the Big Ten tonight because that's what we do. If you look at the Big Ten right now, I only see one team that I want to see in that playoff right now. There's nobody else is playing up at that level. If I had to pick a top four teams in the country right now, I think Clemson and Notre Dame would both be in them.
Okay.
I think it's possible, and that's crazy that we're having that conversation because we've both bemoaned the lack of quality football in the ACC for how long now. I like adding Notre Dame into this mix. I really think it's changed the perception of the conference. We have a couple other teams that are playing up now to the level of competition, and I don't know whether that's because they've added another really, really good team, and teams are trying to figure this out, or just the mess that is 2020. I'm not sure which it is, but the ACC is really intriguing this year, more so than maybe any other conference.
We had an interesting story, the Pitt football notes story in the paper today, and the top of it was, and this is going to be. It seems like Pat Narduzzi is like, they should play in the conference or don't, and I'm like, Pat, you're not really in a position to make demands here, but
right.
but that's what I think the ACC folks are all like. Notre Dame's presence in the conference this year has made things different and better. And I guess it's not a surprise that a conference would pursue Notre Dame as a full member. Certainly the Big Ten has in the past and been rebuffed. And Notre Dame obviously gets the final word, but it's made a difference in the perception of the ACC. I think it's made a difference in the level of competition. I'm not sure that Notre Dame would ever go for that outside of this situation this year. But and you had thoughts about because Notre Dame's at Boston College
this weekend. Yeah,
this weekend.
Yeah.
What were you thinking about that one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple other little side notes there. So the idea of it would be a really interesting question. Like, is Notre Dame's path to the playoff easier as a full member of the ACC? Like, if Notre Dame went all in on the ACC in the future,
I don't think there's any question.
I I would agree. I think that's true because I think the quality of the opponents that they play, if they had to play a conference schedule in addition to whatever traditional rivalries they could keep in the non-conference slate, that'd be a hell of a schedule. You keep your Stanford there, you keep
SC.
An SC, and you keep some of your traditional rivalries in there in addition to potentially another matchup every once however many times that comes up with Clemson, possibly even a Miami, Virginia Tech. Like, that's really intriguing. Notre Dame, take that seriously. Think through this. I think you could. I think there's a way that you can keep those traditional rivalries and still play a conference slate and have a stronger schedule to make a better argument to get into the playoff. That's an interesting thing.
Just keep your hockey team in the Big Ten. Come on.
Yeah. The other interesting thing is that if I'm a Clemson fan right now, even with the loss, I'm feeling really good about the future of Clemson Tiger football.
Oh yeah, you're still in the driver's seat. I don't think there's no question.
Well, I mean, even after this year, even after Trevor graduates, DJU is going to be one heck of a quarterback, and he missed some reads that Trevor would not have missed on Saturday night. But it's his second start, it's fine. Yeah. But just seeing the level that he was seeing the field in his second start, they're going to be just fine. So if I'm a Clemson fan, I'm feeling okay, even though that's the first regular season loss in a long time. I'm still feeling okay if I'm Clemson. Let's go back to the question that you asked.
Yes.
About Boston College. It's an interesting thing because if this was Clemson going to Boston College after a big win like this, I would have this circled on my calendar going, this is an opportunity for Clemsoning.
Clemsoning index 8.
Yeah. Clemsoning index 8 at least. And now I'm looking at Notre Dame. I'm like, can we Notre Irishing? I mean, they haven't done it yet, so we don't have a reason to name it because they've not done it yet.
Yes.
But if I am Notre Dame, I am making sure that I'm taking this game very seriously because this is a Boston College team that in DJU's first start dominated Clemson in the first half. We talked about that last week. Boston College is a good football team, and this is not a game that Notre Dame can take lightly, and it's a danger spot for them. Coming off of a huge win like that, fans storming the field, which was ill-advised. My favorite tweet was that Notre Dame's covered the spread. I'm
going to be speaking with my favorite Notre Dame student, my former intern, tomorrow, and I'm going to ask her how it feels to be the poster children for college misbehavior this week.
Right. I mean, I get it. You beat the number one team in the country, celebrate, but at the same time, it's a pandemic.
Yeah.
Don't storm the field.
There's some issues there.
But if I'm a Notre Dame fan, in addition to watching for another 7 days to make sure that there's not an outbreak on campus, I am paying really, really close attention to this game against Boston College this weekend. This is a dangerous game. Keep an eye on this one. It's early in the day. I wrote down what time it is. It's an early kick. 3:30. It's a 3:30 kick on ABC Eastern. So we have another game we're talking about that's happening at 3:30, but keep a close eye on this one and see if Boston College kind of keeps this close. It could be worth watching.
Okay. You and I are experiencing more weirdness than we're used to this week. Weirdness in group of 5 games. Weirdness in AJ's world is nothing unusual, and it's perfectly normal. And here is AJ to tell you about this week's Group of 5 / Pac-10, Pac-12 After Dark weirdness coming up on Saturday. AJ.
Hello, everyone. It is this week's Group of 5 report. However, it saddens me to report that the Group of 5 games this week are not good. There's 2, and we'll get to them in a second. Before we get into the Group of 5, I want to talk about just completely bad football. Because, listen, if 2020 has given us anything, it is that we should be thankful for the things that we do have. And so for that, we're going to talk about some really bad football games that we would be very, very happy to have in April or in weeks where, we're just happy to have football again at all. At noon on Saturday, Illinois at Rutgers. No one wants to watch this game. No one. Except Rutgers is competent. Greg Schiano comes in and instantly makes them magically competent. They hung 27 on Ohio State, ran an actually successful trick punt return play. Hey, look at you, Rutgers. You're not horrible. In fact, you're favored in a Big Ten conference game for the first time in 6 years. Real quick quiz. When did Rutgers join the Big Ten? 6 years ago, which means this is the first Big Ten conference game they've ever been favored in. Congratulations, Illinois. You're a historical footnote. Sure, Rutgers. Give me Rutgers. Penn State at Nebraska. Someone has to win that game. Someone has to lose that game. That's all I'm going to say about it. So we also have one of my favorite games of the year. It's Butt Bowl week. Baylor University playing Texas Tech, B-U-T-T, Butt Bowl. Both teams still butts. Neither team's terribly good. This should just be a big, stupid shootout of a game, but don't expect anything of any actual note. Just enjoy the fact that the logos make the word butt. And then finally, we get into some actually decent games. We have at noon, Coastal Carolina going to Troy. Again, Coastal Carolina, number 15 in the country. Those are your undefeated Chanticleers. This should actually be a good game. Troy is not as bad as their record looks. They are 4-3, but they lost to BYU, an incredibly good BYU team. They took it to the wire against Georgia State and lost a bummer against Georgia Southern. Upset alert on this one. I don't want my beloved Chanticleers to lose, but Troy is better than it appears. So keep an eye on that game. That's at noon on ESPNU. Let's also scroll down. We're going to skip the rest of the middle of the day because it's all just kind of generic football. Enjoy it. 3 p.m. UTEP at UTSA. Both of these teams are far better than they have been in the past. This is for Conference USA Texas supremacy. So, hey, just enjoy these games. The Roadrunners are good. UTEP is actually slightly good. This will be on ESPN Plus, so if you have that, watch that game. Alabama LSU is going to be bad. And finally, we're going to pick up here at 7 p.m. Oregon at Wazoo. Oregon looked pretty rough to start. Obviously, week one, even though it's November, week one jitters for Oregon. They came out and finished against Stanford. Wazoo put away Oregon State pretty convincingly. So this should be a super fun game. They're going to throw a million times. But, hey, it's on Fox at 7 p.m. And if we're going to just do a quick run through the night games, I expect probably half of these to get canceled because of COVID reasons. We have Cal going to Arizona State. This is one of the weird times where Arizona State can have like a regular home game, but they're still going to do it at night anyways. Cal at Arizona State. Jaden Daniels is so very, very fun to watch. Cal's game last week was canceled. So this is Cal's first game of the season. We have no idea what Cal's going to look like. If it's a Justin Wilcox coach team, I expect defense and more of it. And then finally at 11 p.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1, Oregon State at Washington. Washington's game got canceled last week. They were scheduled to play Cal. Oregon State did not look great against Washington State. So, hey, you got to play the other Washington team this week, and you probably won't look very good here either. Oregon State just doesn't have a defense. Their quarterback, Tristan Gebbia, was 34-48 for 329 last week, and they had a running back run for 120 yards. They have an offense. They just don't have much of a defense. So this should be fun. Air Force Wyoming was canceled, sadly, due to COVID things with Air Force. One would think that a service academy that is meant for air defense would be better at an airborne illness. But hey, who am I to say? And if I could throw in one more terrible football game, I'm just going to roll one football game out here. Wisconsin's got to play Michigan. Michigan, what you doing? 9 Indiana is real. In fact, number 10. You put some respect on Indiana's name. Indiana is number 10. And I love that so much. 2020, you're the best sometimes. This has been your Group of Five Weird Bad Football Report. And we will see you next week. Back to you, Carla and Crappy.
Thank you, AJ. Yeah, it sounds weird. It's going to be fun. We have games that we're going to talk about and some other things, but it's just we're talking about these games almost for the wrong reasons, or because it's just so unusual that we couldn't. It's like we can't look away. Maybe, and I don't want to. Please don't take this as me piling on. But that's sort of the case for this first game. We established last week what Little Nude Saturday is on FS1. Penn State at Nebraska. This is 0-3 Penn State at 0-2 Nebraska. I mean, these are serious prime college football brands, and 5 losses between the two teams. Penn State is favored by 3.5 points. Carla, I know this is a touchy thing for you, but what do you see with this one?
Well, and you're right; these are two like college football brands, right? Sitting here winless. There was an interesting article. I wish I would have written down who wrote it, but as I was looking through ESPN today, that somebody wrote a story on the major football brands that are suffering this year, including Penn State, including Nebraska, including Georgia, including Michigan.
I saw this. Yeah.
Really interesting take, and the epitome of 2020. We have no idea, right? And because this is such a weird week, my notes for our conversation here are kind of all over the place. So I'm just going to kind of go through because we're not really breaking down this game, really. It's just kind of a conversation piece. The reason why, and I will give Crappy the benefit of the doubt here and be fully transparent and say I'm the one that said we should talk about this game. So he is not piling on. This was I am bringing this upon myself this week.
She did. I left this completely up to her, and she bit.
Yeah, I did. Well, just because I think it's interesting. I mean, who would have thought that heading into this, and we're talking about this game because both these teams are winless.
Yeah.
And we couldn't have imagined being here.
And that's insane. That is an insane thing to think.
It's absolutely insane. Particularly being a fan of one of those two teams. So what I wrote down here is the biggest challenge. One of the biggest challenges that Penn State has right now is the fact that they have no run game so much really to speak for. And that's surprising. And a huge challenge and an offensive problem that needs to be fixed. But my very next note here is with a question mark after it is this the recipe for a first win for Penn State? And when you look at the way these two teams match up, I think it is. And that's not just me speaking as a fan, although my heart as a fan says this better be it. Because if it's not, you're looking at a maximum 500 season, because that's where we are with an 8-game schedule. So, the Penn State defense has not been what we're used to with Penn State. All you have to do is look back at what Maryland did last week. Secondary has been a challenge on defense.
Sure.
And it was one of the biggest concerns heading into the season as to how the secondary was going to hold up, and it's not done well. But my note right after that says Penn State's defense has been weak in the secondary. But Nebraska's defense is technically worse. Which is not something you're used to seeing out of Nebraska. You're not used to seeing a defense that's given up a ton of yards, but Nebraska's defense has given up a ton of yards, and they haven't really played an offensive juggernaut per se yet. Really, a team that's going to rack up the yards on another team, on an opponent.
Maybe one.
I mean,
sorry, I had to throw that in.
Yeah, it was week 1, right?
Yes.
And Ohio State's numbers in week 1 were not what they've been, right? They were still, they were still ironing things out. So Nebraska is putting up all these, is just giving up a ton of yards. Nebraska's offense is putting up a ton of yards, but they're just not scoring. They have 406 yards per game, but only 15 points per game. Nebraska primarily runs the football. Adrian Martinez, the epitome of a dual threat quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
The one good thing that Penn State's defense has going for it is that it's actually pretty good against the run.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I think this is a potential opportunity here for Penn State to pick up their first win, because I think if you can minimize the dual threat aspect of Martinez, and force him to throw the ball even with a weaker secondary, I still think that's probably a recipe. But I mean, you have to wonder if Sean Clifford's kind of getting the yip. You'd say a pitcher gets the yips.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that might be the case. I went back and read some of the stuff that James Franklin said in his presser this morning. And he says that quarterback Will Levis is going to start seeing some time.
Okay.
And the reasoning for it was just to give Sean Clifford a break, because he's essentially the lead rusher. And we've said this all along, that when your quarterback is your lead rusher, you have offensive problems.
It's
never a good thing.
Right.
And that's where Penn State's sitting right now. They don't have a rusher beyond Sean Clifford. And so Levis is going to start getting some reps just to give Sean Clifford some downs off,
Mm-hmm.
and to catch some breathers. And so I don't know whether that's a good thing or if it makes me really nervous. Like what's in the head of and if you watch Clifford's mentality, the way his nonverbals after the Maryland loss were not good. Not good. And this is a kid that's trying to finish out his career, and I worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he kind of has this a mental hurdle now that he has to try to get over with this team. This is the week that they've got to do it. And if you look at the rest of the schedule after this game,
mm-hmm.
Penn State can absolutely finish the season 5-3.
Mm-hmm.
If they can just get a win on the board, the rest of their games are manageable.
Started somewhere.
They have to get started. I think this is the week that they get started. If they don't, it's going to be a really long season in Happy Valley.
Okay.
But we are
still
okay. I hope.
Yeah. We're good. We're good. I will start by saying Nebraska, I was impressed in the first game of the season. I think there's been an upgrade in talent. I think there's been an upgrade in coaching and preparation. Scott Frost is a proven guy, and he will get the Cornhuskers turned around. But it's not something that can happen immediately. There needs to be a couple more years of his recruiting classes. And I hope the folks in Lincoln are patient enough to let that happen. But noticeable things, D-line was quick and active. They got 3 sacks again on Justin Fields when we played them in the opener in Columbus. I really liked, and by that I mean I was really terrified by Luke McCaffrey. And I wonder, as far as I know, as of today, there was Scott Frost had not committed to who's going to start at quarterback for Nebraska this week, because McCaffrey of the noted football McCaffreys came in late last week and actually sparked a couple of drives, neither of which scored points, which is the thing that you mentioned. But he actually moved the offense. And so I wonder if that's Penn State's going to see him as a starter. They will see him at some point during the game, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Penn State's not in the Penn State's. It's not an issue of talent. It's an issue of talent that it's lost for one reason or another. You have NFL caliber receivers who are now playing in the NFL. You lose your best defensive player because he opts out because of the pandemic.
Right.
You've lost your top 2 running backs to injuries. And that's where Penn State was going to be. That's where Penn State's offense was going to be.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect situation for Sean Clifford, because Clifford's not Trace McSorley. He is not going to be he's not going to be the guy. But what he could do is run a good RPO offense. He can make throws underneath to tight end, to the damn tight ends that Penn State always has. and let the running backs carry the ball. And you've removed all that. And now it's to the point where, and this was referenced in the ESPN story that you mentioned. The guys who are calling the plays for the Nittany Lions don't seem to want to call running plays at all because it's not working. Mm-hmm. I think, I still think it's just basic talent stuff. These are both good coaches. These are both good coaching staffs. Even with losses to injuries and departures, Penn State's up here and Nebraska's still down here. I'm doing a bar chart with my hands for those of you who are listening.
You took your lessons from Steve Koinaki?
Yeah.
Okay. Where's your calculator?
I have one on my phone. Penn State's going to get its first win in this game. And hopefully that will be a thing. Maybe Clifford will feel more comfortable going forward. Maybe they'll find something to kind of take the pressure off of him, whether that's spelling him for a series here and there. But I think of the two brands here, and I don't think this is indicative of huge problems at Nebraska. It's just Scott Frost needs time.
Yeah.
Penn State has different stuff to overcome, and I think they're going to take a step to overcoming that this weekend. I promised to tell you what an Ohio State fans' most 2020 thing about this college football season. What is the thing? The next 2 weeks, when Ohio State plays Maryland and Indiana, are far scarier than the final 2 weeks of the season when Ohio State plays Michigan State and Michigan.
Yeah.
And what in the hell is that?
Right.
3:30 on Saturday, number 3 Ohio State at Maryland. Ohio State is favored by 24.5. I will tell you right now to take Maryland in the points because it's going to be tighter than that.
Yeah.
But Carla, I'll let you take a crack at this first.
Yeah, kid brother is settling in quite nicely. Yeah. Talia is making a name for himself and getting out of his brother's shadow. And I saw that firsthand last weekend. It's an interesting conversation. I didn't put, a bunch of notes about this game in here because I'm with you. I think this is an Ohio State win because Maryland hasn't seen a complete team like this. A team that can both score efficiently and has a really good defense. You could say they've seen pieces of it, but not the whole package. So I think this is an Ohio State win, probably by 2 scores. I'm with you. Take Maryland in the points. If you're that kind of if you're interested in those kinds of things. But my 2 notes here for Ohio State. I mean, I think the Ohio State defense is going to be the difference in this game. It's just really darn good, and the Ohio State run game if it gets going. Maryland is flat out not good against the run, and had Penn State been able to run the football last week, they probably would have beat Maryland. But they just couldn't. There's no run game for the Nittany Lions this year. So I think the fact that Ohio State finally has established a run game, and just give the ball to Master Teague a couple times, and I think that's going to loosen that lineup. And I think that's the key for Ohio State to win this game. My interesting note about Maryland is the fact that I started getting some thoughts and references thinking back, because one of the other notes I was going to have about this week was the fact that nobody's talking about Alabama LSU, and now that game's not happening.
Right.
But it's just interesting, right? So Alabama LSU is typically one of the most anticipated games of the season.
Yeah.
And had that game been actually on the schedule this weekend, we would have been like, yeah, so what? Right? It's completely upside down. This whole weekend is just completely upside down. But one of the interesting things about watching the fall of LSU this year is how much they relied on Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Right. And we're starting to realize the impact and the gravity of what Joe Burrow was able to do at LSU. And I look at that and I look at Maryland and I go, right. It's a very similar situation. A transfer quarterback is coming in that we are learning has ridiculous amounts of talent. And you start building an offense around him.
So, I mean, does this go back to the thing that I referenced earlier, where you can't get by in college football with a game manager?
Yeah,
You've got to have a real talented quarterback.
I think so, and I think Maryland, out of winning the Talia lottery, so to speak,
Right.
is sitting in the driver's seat with a team. And here's the thing: there's the difference, right? So Joe Burrow started as a senior after transferring as a graduate transfer. Talia's a sophomore.
Yeah.
Maryland's got time to put the pieces into place. Maryland's going to be a dangerous team the next 2 years, as long as Talia is under center. If he stays for his full 4 years and doesn't decide to declare for the draft early, Maryland's going to be a real interesting team the next couple of years, because they're already starting to put those pieces together, and you can see it. You can see it happening. So this is Ohio State wins this football game because this is the first time Talia has seen a defense that's going to confuse him. But this might be the beginning of this first kind of concept that Coach Ed O put together down in LSU, is building the team around building an offensive structure kind of around the quarterback. I think we might be seeing an exact replication of this at Maryland, and we've seen that it works. So something to keep an eye on in the Big Ten. We might be seeing a change in philosophy, right, particularly in the East. So yeah,
I will start. I will start by saying that I can, in fact, pronounce his name. Talia Tagovailoa.
Tagovailoa. Yeah, just say it quickly don't think about it.
I'm still going with Bob Tags.
Bob from Bama.
Bob from Bama. Bob Tags. That's what we're going to stick with. I just wanted to make it known that I tried. I made an effort to pronounce it, because
that's for you, JD.
I am a print guy. I just need to know how to spell it, and that's okay. I'm gonna quibble a little bit with you about Ohio State's defense. And I've said this before. The talent level is still there. The experience is not, and they're giving up. And it doesn't. 23 points a game doesn't sound awful, but it's 93rd in the country, and they have to handle an offense that suddenly looks like it's the real thing. There's good speed on the edges. They can bring the funk. Running back Jake Funk, who's I just love his name, but he's averaging up 8 yards a touch, 8 yards a carry. So that is not. That is a substantial offense, and I think it's, given Ohio State's an experience on defense, that could be a thing. And maybe we'll get to see that exposed for a little bit. Ohio State's offense, okay. I don't. There's not a ton I need to say. The rushing game seems like it's coming. I would like to see it at a different place than it is now, but the whole thing, I think this whole thing breaks down when you look at Maryland's defense, which is giving up almost 500 yards a game, and Justin Fields will take every single one of those and more. What I would say to AJ is that perhaps this is a Big Ten game that you should not sleep on. The over-under is 73.5. So, I mean, this is going to be, as our friend AJ would say, it's going to get pointsy.
Yes.
It's going to get pointsy. Ohio State's going to win this. Ohio State's going to pull away towards the end of the game. But I'm going to have heartburn for much of the late afternoon because this is going to go back and forth for a while, I think. The last game that we're going to, and I'm going to do a thing here. Just imagine, I can't do the voice completely, but just imagine like football promos, NFL films, kind of that style.
Okay.
Two undefeated powerhouses battle it out for supremacy in the Big Ten West. It's Northwestern at Purdue. This is at 7:30 on Saturday. Northwestern is ranked 23rd. Purdue is unranked but unbeaten, as is Northwestern. Northwestern is favored by 3. And that's why we're talking about this game. Both of these teams, Northwestern is 3-0. Purdue is 2-0. And that's just as weird as anything that we've talked about so far today.
Yep. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's the reason why I put this game on the list, was because, we all were talking Iowa, we're talking Minnesota, we were talking Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Minnesota is 2 losses. Iowa has 2 losses, and Wisconsin's battling pandemic issues. And so here we are. Now, technically, Wisconsin is also still unbeaten.
Sure.
But they've only played 1 game.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting conversation now to have with the, potential playoff implications of what happens if Wisconsin now can only play 6 games. So just interesting. I don't have a ton of notes on this game. It's remarkable that these 2 teams are both unbeaten and playing for essentially the lead in the division halfway through the season. That's what happens when you only play 8 games. So Northwestern actually has a true balanced offense, and I'm doing this strictly on statistics because who honestly, put your hand up if you've watched any Northwestern football this year, right?
I have not.
I haven't either. So I'm going strictly off of notes here. So statistically, Northwestern has a true balanced offense behind senior quarterback Peyton Ramsey. They actually have more rush. This is really interesting. I love this. This is such a Pat Fitzgerald team, right? So they have they have more yards rushing per game. They average more yards on the ground per game than passing. But their leading rusher, Drake Anderson, only has, out of the 3 games, has only rushed for 100 yards once.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Right? That's Northwestern football. That's Pat Fitzgerald football right there. And Drake Anderson's 100-yard game came against Maryland in week 1, when Talia was still trying to get his, head on straight in the new offense and just, turn the ball over 3 times because the Northwestern defense rattled him. That's another thing. Northwestern's defense, pretty dang good. Yes. Northwestern's defense right now, if you take Wisconsin out of it, because Wisconsin's only played 1 game, so the statistics are all skewed. So if you throw Wisconsin out and you look at everybody that's played more than 1 game, Northwestern is both the top scoring defense in the conference and the total defense in the conference right now. Which is remarkable when you're looking at teams like Penn State and Ohio State and teams that you would normally have right up there at 1 and 2. No, who's number 1 in defense in the conference? It's Northwestern. Because of all of those things, and I think Northwestern's going to get the win here. And the Purdue defense, if you look at again, statistics alone, because who's watched any Purdue football this year? Not me. No. The Purdue defense statistically is not great. They're giving up a ton of yards on defense. Yes. But they're 4th in scoring defense, which is interesting. So they let you drive down the field, and then they apparently, again, 2020, what the heck? They'll let you march right down the field, but apparently not let you score. So I don't know. I overall, it looks like, at least on paper, that Northwestern has the complete package together to win this game. And possibly even win the division. I'll be interested to see what happens when they play Wisconsin. And if
they get to actually play Wisconsin.
Exactly. If that game actually happens, and whether or not they'll be able to, whether the amount of playing time will have a factor here, in the fact that Northwestern's actually been playing all along, and Wisconsin's been up and down with, whether they're playing or whether they're not. Could be interesting. That's a thing. I think it is a thing. I think we could be looking at Northwestern playing for a Big Ten title. I think that's a possibility. I think a really strong possibility. I think Northwestern can win the whole dang thing in the West. Okay. So I'm going to say Northwestern wins this game.
I'm going to say the same thing. And I think I'm just looking at it kind of what these teams are and how they match up. And Northwestern, I mean, it is a perfect reflection of Pat Fitzgerald. It is physical. It is defense. Peyton Ramsey can throw the ball. He is not a game manager. He played in the program at Indiana, and we know what's going on there.
Yeah.
But Northwestern's going to run the football. They've been doing that to a solid 200 yards per game. Purdue it's not quite Joe Tiller's basketball on grass, but they're averaging plus 300 yards of passing per game, over 400 total yards per game. this is a thing we've heard before this show this week. That doesn't necessarily translate to points. They're scoring just 27 a game, and that's only 81st in the country. I know firsthand that weird things can happen in West Lafayette on a night game. But the potential for weirdness is decreased dramatically, because there's nobody in the stands, except for, mom and dad cheering for the players. So I don't really see, just the style of football. They will hold the ball, they will run the clock, they will play excellent defense. And Northwestern will win this game. That'll be enough to the Cats will get to 4-0 and with a pretty solid lead in the West. Boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, all of the other podcasting services. You can watch us on YouTube and on the show's Facebook page. If you'd like us, please subscribe, rate, review. If you don't, mind your own damn business. And be sure to come back next week to see exactly how wrong we were. Carla, any final thoughts?
One other game I circled because, again, head scratcher. This is kind of like the head scratcher weekend.
It is.
Number 9 Miami at Virginia Tech, which, that's Virginia Tech's a decent football team. You're sitting at 4-2. Miami, that's a good ACC matchup. But
yes,
Virginia Tech is favored in that game by 2.5.
This would be the same Virginia Tech team that just lost to Liberty.
That just lost to Liberty last weekend. At home. And I get it, like Miami had to eke out a win over NC State. It came back late to win that game. I get that.
But that's not Liberty.
No, it's not Liberty. And they won the game.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on here. I dug into everything I could look into, and I don't see anything. De'Aaron King, I'm assuming, is still playing. Like that would be the only thing. Like I was like, is there a pandemic issue here, or is something else going on? I can't find any information out. I don't know why Virginia Tech is favored by 2.5. Statistically, the Canes are the better team defensively. Yeah. I mean, every if you look at the numbers. Maybe the only thing that I could see is that Virginia Tech has the top rush offense in all of Power 5. If you take out all the group of fivers, Virginia Tech has the best rush offense out of all the Power 5 teams. And Miami is middle of the pack in rush defense within the conference. So maybe that's the difference here, but it's something to keep an eye on if the Hokies can run the football, but I don't get this one at all. I mean, and it's not even a night game. If it's a Blacksburg at night, I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. It's a noon kick. I have no idea.
I have no idea. There's the shrug. We have no idea.
Yeah, shrug. I have no idea.
I'm gonna point you in the direction of the Chickens of Coastal Carolina. Once again, they are number 15 in the country. They are up that far in the rankings. They are 11-point favorites at Troy this weekend. That is also a new game, by the way. And as far as I'm concerned, they're going to be 8-0 as of about 3 p.m. on Saturday. And
I would concur.
That just gets better.
And better.
And better.
And there's a common opponent here. Like, I know a little bit about Troy. They played Middle Tennessee a lot. Yeah. So I went and looked at common opponent.
Yes.
They played Georgia State in consecutive weeks. These two teams did. They played Georgia State in consecutive weeks.
Yes.
Troy lost to Georgia State 36-34. Coastal beat Georgia State 51-0.
Okay.
Chickens are going 8-0.
8-0 Chickens. I'm going to try to get us some T-shirts or something. I have a connection down there, but we'll see.
Yes.
We'll see what we can do. Boys and girls, thank you for joining us. It's going to be a weird one. Carla, I am cheersing the prospect of Penn State's first win.
I pray to God.
And there's Charlie, who's trying to drink my cocktail. He just showed up in the nick of time to end the show. Hi, buddy. You can't have this. Carla, thank you very much. Thanks. Boys and girls, thank you for joining us. Be sure to come back next week when we will do this all once again. Cheers, everybody. Have a great night.